So this is part of a ride I did in Eastern Ontario, starting from Cornwall to just west of Morrisburg. So pretty much a straight line out and back. And I think the whole ride was maybe 130 or 140 kilometers. So this is the return part. I've got a little bit of help from a tailwind, which certainly feels nice once you turn around and you get a little push on the back. And it's kind of an endurance-paced ride. A couple of sections where I push a little bit, but that really wasn't the intention of the ride. I'm following a training plan, an 18-week sweet spot training plan from Fast Cat Coaching. And I think this is the end of week 3. And so the ride was supposed to be 4.5 hours and about 270 TSS. And so I was mindful of the length of time as well as the TSS and trying to keep things in that range in order to stick to what the ride should have been, because there were no prescribed intervals for the ride. So those of you that are watching this video, I would assume have an interest in cycling. Some of you, maybe most of you, are diabetic and maybe not so up on cycling in terms of power and TSS and so forth. So TSS stands for training stress score, and what that means is it's basically the intensity of the ride multiplied by the time of the ride. So a 274 TSS is up there. It's a considerable amount of TSS for a single training ride. An average training ride for someone like myself, right, because it varies a lot from one individual to the other. So average TSS for a training ride would be maybe 130, 150, 170 starts getting a little high for an average ride. And so 270 is definitely up there, and it's a longer ride. And it's fun to get out and be able to stretch like this a little bit. So I had wanted to do this ride for a long time, along Route 2, along the waterfront trail. I don't know that I would go back and do this portion of the ride again. Been there, done that, as they say. It really wasn't anything spectacular. The roads were okay. The drivers were great for the most part, but as you can see here, I've got a good shoulder, and I'll take it. But there's lots of portions where there's no shoulder at all. The shoulder might be just 6 inches or so, and then it's just all gravel. So I mean, look at that. You can't ask for more from the driver. Person going over the yellow, even though I'm in the shoulder. So as a cyclist, that's a good day already. I'm just heading down this stretch for a while here. It's fairly uneventful. It's really flat, which makes a ride like this pretty easy. And my heart rate now is a little bit higher than what I would see if I was just doing straight endurance, because there's a couple of times where I'll push a little bit and that'll drive the heart rate up, and then it'll start to come back down. It was also really hot that day. I want to say it was about 30 or 32, and then with the humidity it was in the high 30s, maybe 37 or 38. Hydration plays such a huge part of any endurance sport. Certainly when you're out in the heat and the high humidity like this, you want to stay on top of your hydration. As a diabetic, I can tell you absolutely you want to stay on top of your hydration. The more dehydrated you are, the higher you're going to find your numbers are going to be. And so I drink a ton when I'm out riding. And these little tar snakes, you got to watch out for those. Those will suck your tires right in. So I'm always very mindful of those. It's a juggling act when you're riding. You're listening for traffic, you're looking for traffic, you're looking for road hazards, tar snakes, gravel, glass, of course, sometimes construction debris. So I'm getting ready to go out and ride. I didn't get dressed up for this video, and I just had a snack, and I want to have a chance for the snack to start to metabolize before I go ride. It's a 3-hour ride today. Similar kind of structure to what you're seeing in this video, so it's free form. It's not really training with structured intervals. So I thought it would be a nice way to just pass the time to watch this video and do a small narration for it while I'm waiting. So like I said, really uneventful. Just working my way back towards Morrisburg. At this point, I'm low on water. I've got plenty of food in my pockets. As a diabetic, you want to go out with more than enough food. Better to have it and not need it than vice versa. So this guy passed me before because he was heading in this direction. I was going the other way, and I gave him a wave. We waved at one another. I'm always amazed by these cyclists that are just carrying these big, heavy bags and just plugging along. And he was an older gentleman. We said hello to one another as I passed him. That's a different kind of cycling. That kind of amazes me when someone's out there carrying all this heavy stuff and just plugging along. It's really cool. It's not my thing. Maybe one day. Coming into a construction zone now. So I had ridden this already on the way out, right? I'm just doubling back everything I've done. This is just what we call an out and back type of ride, where it's more or less a straight line and then turn around, go back the exact same way, as opposed to doing a loop or some kind of patterny thing. So again, heading into the construction area here, and I want to be able to stop and get some water, refill my bottles. I'm not too fussed about getting any food at this point. I've got plenty of stuff in my jersey. So I see a gas station up on my left. I'm planning to go over there. There's a stop sign coming up in a little bit, I think. I'm trying to stay as far right as I can. I know there's no cars behind me because my radar would let me know if there were, but nonetheless. So I pull in over here. Plan is to get some water, and then I realize there's nowhere to leave my bike. And this is the worst part about riding alone, is you go in to get some water or some snacks, and if you can't really see your bike from inside the shop, you're really taking a gamble, right? Because it'll take 2 seconds for someone to just throw your bike in the back of a vehicle and take off with it. And people generally know that road bikes are, they can be quite expensive, so it really is a risk. One thing I like to do when I go in is I'll take my helmet and I'll put it around the straps. I'll put it around the wheel and the fork and clip it on the opposite side, so the inside portion of the bike that's leaning up against the wall, so that if someone were to just try and hop on it to ride off, it wouldn't be that easy. They'd have to mess with the helmet for a second. And I also make sure that the bike is in its toughest possible gear, so someone can't just start pedaling right away. So on my Propel, that would be, I think the big chainring is a 53 or a 54, and the smallest cog in the back is an 11. So 54, 11, I mean, you're not going to start winding it up right away. So now I'm heading back off after my snack. You can see my heart rate's considerably lower. Still have a decent shoulder to be riding on for a little while, so that's good. And as I mentioned earlier, I have a radar on the back of my bike. I've got a Garmin Varia. And what the Garmin Varia does, for those who don't know, is it's a flashing red light, and it also has a radar detector on it that will tell you when a car is, I think, 120 or 140 meters behind you, and as it's approaching. And so on your Garmin, actually here, I've got my Garmin. On your Garmin on the front of the bike, there'll be a red line and an orange line, and it'll show you a dot representing the car as it's getting closer, or multiple dots if there's multiple vehicles. I don't see it really being useful for someone who's riding in an urban environment where there's a steady flow of cars. If cars are just coming non-stop, then you don't need a radar to tell you they're there. You know they're there. I tend to ride on roads like this most of the time, where it's fairly removed, fairly rural, and the cars are not a steady, they're not a constant. So what that radar does is it alerts me. Of course, you can use your ears. I still use my ears. But at the same time, there are moments where you're not going to necessarily hear the car before the radar detects it. And these days with electric cars, that is doubly true. Electric cars will sneak up on you and you have no idea that they're there sometimes. So another thing that it does that's really nice is it allows me, like here, you can see I'm not on the shoulder, I'm on the road. And I know I'm not blocking anyone. Without the radar, I don't know that I would be comfortable doing that because you're always worried about pissing off a motorist and then they're going to give you what's called a punishment pass. And I'm not looking for confrontations when I'm out on the bike, and I'm not even looking to inconvenience a motorist. So it's really neat when you know that you can just pull out, ride in the road, ride wherever the pavement and the roadway is best, as long as there's no conflict with someone who's trying to get by in a much quicker vehicle than what you are on a bike. And then when you get the beep from your radar, boom, you can just pull over. It also, what I personally believe it does is if you're riding in the middle of the road and there's a motorist, 100 or 200 yards behind, and now you hear the beep and you pull over, they saw where you were. Now maybe they're going to be a little more mindful when they pass you because they saw you were occupying a space where they may have normally just driven. So even though you're on the shoulder now or as far to the right as you might possibly be, it still really is a great thing. And I'll tell you, when I first got it, I remember saying to my wife, if this thing broke or got lost or stolen, I'm pretty sure I would replace it right away. And sure enough, it did die on me eventually, and I did replace it right away. So I don't think I can give it higher praise than that. So long rides, generally for me, I'm going to try and stay in that 85, I want to say, to 95-ish cadence, where it's a good balance. I'm not taxing my legs too much. I'm not taxing my cardio system too much. I'm not spinning too fast. And then there's times where I try to stand maybe every 20 or 30 minutes for a minute just to take some pressure off the undercarriage, keep circulation flowing, keep the comfort going. So I'm moving pretty good here. And we're heading towards the Longso Parkway, which is actually really quite nice to ride on. And it's nice if you've never been there. It's really almost at the eastern end of Ontario, and it's just a collection of little islands all along the water, and a really nice place. A lot of people go there to picnic. There's little beaches. Cycling there is real peaceful. I've only done it a couple of times, but it's really quite nice. Before I headed out on this ride, actually I'm going to interrupt myself for a second here. Take a look at this. This was a real head scratcher. Watch this car turn in. Look at that. Now I slowed down considerably. Okay, I'm going to rewind that. So I'm slowing down considerably because I'm planning to turn. Look at this vehicle. Just completely goes in my way like I don't exist. The passenger just put a hand up there. I wasn't sure if it was like an apology wave or if I was maybe being cussed out. You never know what someone's perception of things are. I left it alone. I don't say anything. I'm generally not a confrontational person, especially when I'm out on a bike. There's nothing to gain. I just wanted to keep on moving. So that's what I did. For those of you diabetics watching this, that exercise, you're going to want to make sure that you load up on some good nutrition before you exercise. I can't tell you specifically what to eat. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an endocrinologist. I'm just a type 2 diabetic who's managing pretty well. But what works well for me are generally I'll grab 2 or 3 Aussie bites, which are just these little, maybe about this big size type cakes that I get at Costco, and they have good things in them. I say they're cakes, but they're not cakes. They're it's coconut and nuts and seeds, some fruit in there, and it's got a good ratio of protein and fat and carbs. If you just have carbs, you're going to go straight up and then eventually come pretty much straight down. And the stress of the exercise itself will drive you up as well, depending on the type of exercise you're doing, the intensity and the duration. So you want to take care to make sure that you have something that's going to sustain you throughout your effort, and to stay hydrated as well, like I mentioned earlier, is so important. There was a time when I was new to cycling where I wanted to just go out and go as hard as I could for as long as I could. And if I look back at that time now, I would see consistently that my numbers were higher at the end of my rides and for a much longer duration after the ride. So you factor in a lot of things. There's a lot of different moving parts. The pre-ride nutrition, how well you're managing in general, of course. The outside influences, so temperature and humidity. The stress of the exercise. Maybe the stress of the ride. I've had a couple of rides where they were stressful for other reasons, due to motorists being deliberately aggressive, and that certainly will do something to your numbers and your heart rate. If you want to watch your heart rate really spike, have someone come at you in a car. It's like doing sprint intervals. So again, I'm riding in the middle of the road. I know I can. I know no one's behind me. Very, very kind of free feeling there. And this is on a parkway as well. It's not an actual roadway where there's actual traffic. And there's a bunch of geese. Thought it would be fun to try and get them on the film. It's always a greater idea than the reality of the clip. But anyhow, glad I caught them. I stopped here for a little moment underneath the shelter here, underneath the shade. Little snack, little drink. Send a text to my family, let them know I'm doing well. You can see, if you just take a look at that flag, direction of the wind, and that's the direction I'm heading in. So now I'm on some trails. This is actually called the Waterfront Trail. And I'm not the biggest fan of riding on trails like this because they tend to be occupied by a lot of people that are out walking as families, walking their dogs, young people, old people riding where they're not necessarily the most skilled riders or most environmentally aware. And they have the right to be that way on these trails. So I don't want to be that guy zipping around people and bothering them. But I saw it was quite empty, so I stayed on. And if it was busy, I would have hopped back on the road. So now this is a nice stretch of trail here. I've got a tailwind. I just caught a little bit of a downhill. It's always fun towards the end of your ride to feel like you're getting an extra little push. Now I can see someone in the distance with a couple of dogs, and I see her scrambling when she sees me. So I pull over to the other side, slow down a little bit. She's trying to wrangle her dogs. Keep moving along the trail. This portion here is really beautiful. Especially when you're on an endurance ride like this, you can actually appreciate the scenery versus when you're out training and you've just got your head down. I didn't do any sustained efforts in this ride, but you can see here my heart rate is significantly higher than it was earlier in the ride. That's a little bit of drift. This is a neat bridge. This is really at the end of my ride. So I'm getting back to the parking area, and I see that my TSS is not quite where it needs to be yet for the ride, so I figure I'll just keep going. So now this is Cornwall, Ontario, for those who don't know. I'm kind of keeping time with this scooter in front of me. I figure I'll hang on to this scooter for as long as I can. Keeping a distance, of course. Not going to ride close to someone who I don't know. First of all, I can't keep up with the scooter. If he wants to move, he's gone. Second of all, it's just not a wise or safe thing to do. But I figure as long as I can, in my mind, I'm chasing him, so to speak, where I can just kind of keep him in my sight line. Cards on the table. One of my fantasy rides is to get someone in a scooter who can just pace me at like 43K an hour for 100 kilometers. I would pay good money to have someone ride a scooter safely right in front of me at a good pace where we can just go and go and go. That would be like cycling in a dream. See, I've done a couple of hard starts here, and you can see my heart rate reflects that. And at this point, I'm feeling pretty spent. I'm probably on that last little bit of adrenaline because I'm trying to keep up with the scooter. At this point, he's gone. That's it. So now I watch him sail away, and at this point, I just check my TSS and see I've got about 20-30 more to go, and so I'm just going to endurance pace the rest of this and keep going. Got to really watch when you're passing parked cars. Never know if someone's in there and they're going to open the door not expecting for a cyclist to come whizzing by them. Getting doored is not on my to-do list. My sister had a friend in Ottawa who died as a result of cycling and being doored, and if I'm not mistaken, she was then hit by a car that was passing. So I'm guessing this is what's considered downtown Cornwall. Kind of looks like a little town from the 70s, really. I'm watching out for these manhole covers. That was a little close for comfort there, that motorcycle. And she certainly had room to be riding a little further out. So I stopped for one more cold drink. At this point, my work is done. And gonna have a quick little drink here and then make my way back to where I'm parked. I'm pedaling back, and I think this is my 7th season riding. I've never had a cramp, ever. And all of a sudden I got one right about here. My left hamstring locked up. It felt like a shark was holding on to it. And I had to stop here and unclip with the leg that was cramping. And I wasn't sure what that was going to end like. I had a feeling I was just going to, with my bike, like I was just going to turtle with the bike. That wouldn't be the first time either. So I'm waiting, and now I'm just making my way back, trying to spin out that cramp, make my way back to the parking, throw my bike into my vehicle, I have a nice hot bottle of water waiting for me in the van. If you've never drank a hot bottle of water that's been sitting in a vehicle that's at about 40 degrees Celsius for the last 6 hours, you're doing better than me. That's all I had to drink until I could make it to a store and then purchase a bunch of bottles of cold water. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'm happy to chat with anyone about cycling or diabetes and their management of it. Again, I'm not an expert, but if we can help one another out, I'm happy to do it. See you next time.